Hey everybody, it's Justin Adkins, and thank you for joining me for a fun card tutorial with scrapbooking cards today. Today I will be creating a masculine Valentine's themed card using some paper from scrapbook.com to help set the masculine color palette, and I'll also be using the Pop Arts die set from Concord and Ninth. We'll be using all of these elements together to make the perfect masculine themed Valentine's Day card. Using the Candy Smooth cardstock, I'm going to pull out some different colors to set my color palette, including a navy blue, a light blue color. I'm also going to be pulling a teal color. And then the last color that I'm going to be pulling from this pad of paper is going to be the orange. This is the 6x8 paper pad, which is going to be very important later on in this project. And also, I love how the scrapbook.com paper pads have perfect color palettes to use. Next, I wanted to incorporate a fifth color, and I decided to pull in the pastel glossy cardstock. The yellow in the pastel glossy cardstock is fairly similar to the yellow in the Candy Smooth cardstock as well. So I am going to pull out that yellow glossy cardstock because it's pretty much a decent match, and we'll be using that for our card. Using a guillotine trimmer, I am going to trim each of the papers down into about 1/4 inch strips. I'm going to need about 6-ish of them per color, so it's good to cut those and have them on hand. You can also cut 2 sheets at a time to help decrease your overall production time for this card, so that's a nice little tip to have in your back pocket. Next, I'm going to pull in the A2 size of the white mixed media paper by scrapbook.com, and I'm going to use this as my card front. I am going to take liquid adhesive to put the very first strip down from the bottom left to the upper right corner. Then I'm going to continue with liquid adhesive along that first strip, and I'm just going to layer these in what I would call as close to rainbow order as I can. So you're going to see that I'm going to put the yellow glossy color first, then the orange, then the navy, then the light blue, and then we will go ahead and put our liquid adhesive down and finish off with a strip of the teal color. And then we just repeat the color palette. I've kind of cut part of the layering down just so you don't have to watch the whole process, but you get the gist of how I'm doing it. Using scissors, I do trim off the ends of the strips. Save those little parts that you're trimming off because you may be able to use them for the other stripes on the second half of the card. Now I'm just going to use that center strip as a guide once again and then start laying down my colors in the same order using liquid adhesive. Once again, take your scissors, trim off the excess, and then you're going to have a nice and easy card front to work with. Because I wanted clean edges for this card, I did decide to trim it down very slightly. So I'm trimming my card down. So now instead of A2 size, it's going to be 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And this is going to give me nice clean cut edges on all 4 sides of the panel. Now to make the card a little more special, I'm pulling in some Snowflake White liquid paper splatter watercolor, and I am going to use some of the extra strips of paper to cover up those glossy paper. I didn't know how the liquid paper splatter would dry to it, and just to prevent any potential smudging, I just wanted to cover those up easily and mask them with some excess strips. I water down the paper splatter watercolor on an acrylic block, and then I go ahead and I splatter it onto my card front. I like to put it onto an acrylic block first just because it means an easy cleanup for me later. Once it's dry, you're going to see how that white liquid snowflake paper splatter watercolor dries really nicely and adds a super special shimmery element to our project. Now with the background of our card behind us, let's work on some of our sentiment bits. We are going to take a piece of mixed media cardstock in that A2 size, along with the light blue paper we used recently. We're going to pull in the Pop Arts die set by Concord and Ninth, and I'm going to die cut out the circle that's included in this die set from that light blue cardstock included in the Candy Smooth cardstock from scrapbook.com. I will cut it out and pull in some chipped sapphire distress ink, and using a foam blending tool, I'm going to go in and distress the edges of my circle just to give it a little darkened edge. I like to go ahead and distress the edges of my die cuts because I think it's a really great way to give a nice finished edge to the element. You also get that nice ombre and transition of color, which I think really makes your card look like extra time was put into it to make it look extra special. So I'm finishing off distressing the edges with the Chip Sapphire Distress Ink, and once I have that ready, we're going to smudge some of the distress ink onto my glass mat, wet it with some water, and using a clean watercolor brush, splatter that Chip Sapphire ink onto our circle. Now, once my distressed ink is dry, I'm going to once again pull in the Snowflake White Paper Splatter watercolor and wet it down with a little bit of water. I'm then going to pull in a clean watercolor brush. This is not the one that I had used for my Chip Sapphire splattering, and I'm going to splatter the Snowflake White onto our circle to give it a little extra interest and just really give it that nice finished touch. Pulling in the Pop Hearts die set once again, I'm going to grab that same large circle die cut and then also the Love Ya sentiment that's included in this die set as well. The letters in Love Ya are perfectly spaced, and we're going to use this to our advantage later on in this project. Once I have my circle and sentiment positioned the way that I would like, I tack it down with some mint tape, which is a low tack adhesive, and then I am also going to pull in the different colors of cardstock that we used for our project and utilize some of the small heart dies that are included in the Pop Hearts die set to use for embellishment at the end of our card. I will go in and die cut each of our elements, and then I'm also going to do a second pass with some more of those little hearts to use for later. Now I want to talk to you about how I'm going to create my sentiment. Using both the negative of the Love Ya circle and then also the blue background of the circle that we had ink blended and splattered earlier in this video, I'm going to use that mint tape to tack down the masked white layer on top of the blue layer. Using liquid adhesive, I am going to put a little bit of liquid glue into each of the cutouts for the letters, and then I'm going to carefully put those letters in. A friendly reminder, I'm using white cardstock. If you have any sort of ink on your paper and you're working with white cardstock, be extra careful because you don't want to accidentally get some of that ink onto these letters, and then you're going to have off-colored white little elements on your sentiment. I'm going to very carefully remove the mask, and then it's going to reveal how my sentiment is going to essentially look identical underneath. Everything is perfectly spaced. I have to just kind of nudge the dot on the exclamation point, and then I've got everything taken care of. I'm going to use some 3mm foam tape from scrapbook.com to use on the back of our circle. This is going to allow it to lift off of the project and really provide a nice focal point for the recipient. So I do a couple strips on the back. I kind of believe there's never a thing as too much foam tape, especially when you want it to adhere nicely to your project. So I'm going to remove the backing of the foam tape and then place it as centered as I want it on the card. I'm going to then lay out some of those little hearts that we had die cut earlier in the project and figure out how I want them to lie on the card. I decide to layer a series of 3 of them in the top center portion of the card. You're going to see me go back later and put an extra third one on there, but I'm just going to start putting these little hearts and mapping them around and figuring where I want them. If you are working with a die set that comes with little detailed die cuts, it is a great thing to use them as embellishments for your card. It's also fantastic because you'll be able to utilize them with some of the scrap paper that you have. And I mean, let's be honest, we've all got a nice little stash of scrap paper that we're always looking for an excuse to work through. So this is a wonderful way to make sure that your paper is getting extra used. So I'm going to go in, I'm putting all of my little hearts into place, and then I decide that I want to pull in one last bit of embellishment. So I am going to use clear glitter enamel dots by Pink and Main, and I think that clear glitter enamel dots or just clear enamel dots are like the lowest stakes of embellishments. They work with everything. You don't have to worry about color coordinating. They don't have to dry. They're immediately going to adhere to your project, so you don't have to worry about them smudging. It makes it super easy. I'm going to take some liquid adhesive and put it on the back of my card front and adhere it to an A2 size card base. Because we trimmed our card down a little less than 1/8 of an inch on each side, we are going to have a nice white border around the card, which is going to frame it perfectly. With my card front adhered nicely to my card base, this card is fully completed. I love this masculine color palette, and I think it puts a really nice spin on what you can create with a Valentine's Day card. Thank you so very much for tuning in today. I hope you learned some fun tips and tricks to incorporate into your next Valentine's Day card, and I will catch you back here real soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can also follow me on all socials at JustinOatByJustin. Thanks once again, and have a great day, y'all. Bye-bye.